AD has always been the most effective when he plays in the 16 to 18-foot range tops as a transition player, playing in the mid post and playing on the box. James wants him to play on the box. That was the plan when James got him in the 1920 season. James started to slow down. The logic was I'm going to play off you. And not only am I going to play off you, I'm going to play off you by you playing in the post and you running in transition. You're going to open up the offense for us. Now, what the NBA did back in the days was, or not maybe 5-10 years ago, what the NBA did was they tricked the big man into thinking that you got to play further away from the basket because this is the way the game is going. You got to be able to shoot the long ball, which I don't have a problem with the big man shooting the long ball. In fact, the year that the Lakers won the NBA championship, I think Anthony Davis shot his highest percentage on the long ball. But here's the difference, though. If I'm not mistaken, Lo, did he only shoot like what, 2 threes a game? Maybe
he shot 3.5 in the regular season.
So 3 threes a game. I got no problem with that whatsoever. You know why? Because most of his game was exactly where he was the most effective: in the mid range, in the mid post, and on the box. And that's where these guys are the best. Now, when you get a guy like Joel Embiid who's shooting 6-7 threes, you're letting the defense off the hook. When you get guys like Cat that's shooting 6 or 7 threes in a game, when you got a 6'7" guy on you. I'm watching him 2 nights ago. I'm watching him last night against the Miami Heat, and he can't even score on Kyle Lowry on the box. You know why he can't score on Kyle Lowry on the box? Because he's so used to playing on the perimeter that his post game and his interior game has gone away because he's so used to playing on the wing, which goes back to my original statement, how the NBA has tricked the big guy into thinking that he's got to play further away from the basket, getting away from how dominant you are when you're closer to the basket.
I agree with the Embiid assessment. Sometimes Embiid, he does take a little bit too many threes, or when he's making them, I mean, I don't really care. But
how often is that, though, Lo? How often is that?
These last 2 seasons, he shot 37% from threes.
Think about that, though. 30. So if he's shooting,
37.
Right. So if he's shooting 1, right? So if he's shooting 4, he's making 1. I mean, if he's shooting 3, he's making 1, as opposed to when he's in the mid post, or as opposed to when he's in the mid range, and he's way more effective there.
No, he would not. Embiid is not going to be more effective in the mid range while being a 37% 3-point shooter. No, he's not.
Why wouldn't he be more effective? You know why would he be more effective? I'm going to tell you why. Why wouldn't he be more effective?
You're producing more points per shot attempts that you're getting at that point. He would have to be converting his middies at like a 56% clip.
No, that's not true. That's not true. And the reason why, because what you're suggesting is that that's all he's doing. Now, when I'm playing in the mid-range, if I knock down the mid-range, what's that's going to do? That's going to bring the big guy away from the basket. And what I can do is now I can attack him, just like he did Markin when he was just attacking Markin. Once he started,
the same logic is for 3-pointers. If I hit a 3-pointer, it's taking the big away from the basket. This is the same logic.
Actually, it's not. You know why? Because as a big guy, I'll live with you shooting that because I know that you're less effective out there.
37%.
If you're shooting 4 of those and you make 1, I'll live with that, as opposed to you being in the mid-range or you being in the mid-post. I can't live with that because there's more volume there, number one. Number two, you're more apt to get the big guy in foul trouble. And not only get him in foul trouble, you're opening up the offense even more for the other guys, as opposed to when you playing out 22, 23 feet away from the basket, you're taking away from rebounding, you're taking yourself out of the offense, and you're lessening what we can do offensively.
No. The point I'm making is that just simple math. I don't like. It's not even really a conversation.
I want you to hear them. I want you to say the math so I can fix your math.
37% from free is equivalent to like 55% from mid.
He's shooting, but he's shooting 27% from 3.
Oh no, right now I agree with him. Like
and he's shooting plus over 50% from 10 to 3 point. But
he's not going to shoot 27 the whole season.
Exactly, 20. He's not going to
shoot 37.
I think how
much higher is that going to get?
He shot 37 last season.
I just want to ask the question: when you do your math about the equivalent of 33% from 3 is the equivalent to 50% from, are you including that you only get fouled on 1% of your threes versus 15% of your 2-pointers, and adding that point 77% of the time?
And that's great.
But you got to add that too, and you also have to add what that stress that on the defense when you get them foul trouble. So I know that the advanced statistics want to tell you shoot threes because it's an extra point. What it doesn't tell you is basketball reality, which is 2-pointers get fouled 15% versus 1. and what that does to your team in terms of putting the other team in foul trouble, putting you on the line, resting, especially a big man like Embiid. Like, there's a lot that goes into basketball other than numbers. Yo, what's up, homie?
The problem with that logic is not because what you're saying
That's
is
not
true.
logic. That's statistics.
Okay, the problem with that is that even though that's true, there's still other benefits from being at a 3-point line, which is floor spacing, better flowing offense for the rest of the team, rest of the players around
And
you.
is that where you want your best rebounder?
If we have other quality rebounders, it's fine if he's on a perimeter. It's fine.
But you don't though, because you're playing 5 and out. But you don't because you're playing 5 and out. That's what Houston was doing. That's what Dallas was doing.
The other thing, if not to get into a whole philosophical basketball conversation, the other thing with this spacing thing, which we can argue later because you can space without threes, but different conversation.
Yeah, you can. You can.
And anyone who's played basketball knows you can space without shooting threes. That being said, when you shoot those threes, you also give up bigger rebounds. More fast breaks, more easy buckets for their team. Like, there's so much that goes into it that people forget when they just look at the numbers. So I just want to put that into context.
Yeah, but
use one of Dub's words. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Everything you're saying, there's a lot of things that also go in with somebody at the 3-point line, especially if they're a quality 3-point shooter. So again, more floor spacing for everybody else, make it harder for the defense to rotate and send help, which means that there's open driving lanes and
who would benefit the most from more floor spacing down low? Joel Embiid.
Also Embiid being on a 3-point line can also complement other players around him as well. It's not as if like he's the only player. I agree that Embiid in general, he is a dominant enough paint presence and post presence to where, he should be in the post more often. I agree with that. But to act as if like for example, Towns is not a good enough post presence to do that. Like, he's just not. There's never been a point in his career where he's been so dominant in the post where it would justify him being in a post more actively than he's on a 3-point line, especially because he's shooting, like throughout his career, he's shooting 38 to 40%. Very, very, very common.
That goes to the philosophy of people where he should have learned the post first.
Well, not only that, Tom,
let me say this, even if he did learn the post first, the odds of him being able to produce, even with him getting to the free throw line, even the odds that he'll be able to produce at a level in which it would justify him taking away from the volume he shoots from 3 when he's converting 40% of them. That's Kevin McHale, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal level of production to be close to shooting 42% from behind the arc on like 6 or 7 3-point attempts per game. Like that's the level of shooting that Towns does.
Right.
So
Towns is a different animal, but even Embiid right now. Sorry, chill. One sec.
Yep, no problem.
Embiid right now is shooting 27% from 3, and I know you're saying, well, that's not, but that's what he's doing now. So since that's what he's doing now, get your ass inside because
he was arguing like a 5-year sample size. Though he's arguing.
No, I'm just saying right now.
Even if it's a 1-year sample. I mean, who's the best player in the game today? Who are we talking about as the best player in the game today?
Probably Curry right now.
You think
Curry or Giannis?
Right, so you're talking about Giannis. Giannis does not play behind the 3-ball line. Giannis has put a mid-range in his game. Well, and how much
you can't even make him.
He can't even make mids.
Right. Actually, he's gotten better.
So far
this year has been atrocious.
This year, Giannis this year has been atrocious from outside of anything like 8 feet. He's been atrocious.
Right. Even with that being said, he's still more effective doing what he does than he is standing behind the long ball line and shooting threes. He's still more effective doing that. When I think about a guy like Cat, like you just brought up Cat's game starts at 15 feet. Cat's game starts at 15 feet and it expands after that. And the reason why is because, like I said earlier, that when you got a guy who has been tricked by the NBA that this is where you have to play, this is where you should be playing. Now he completely takes that other stuff out of his game and being a box player and being a post player and being a mid-post player because this is where the game is going now. So now that's not him anymore.
How the hell is a professional basketball player shooting 26% from 3 to 16 feet? Damn.
He saw Giannis's.
Giannis
has been terrible.
That's horrible.
Every single time I look at him, I'm like, oh wow,
I did not realize it was that. I knew it was.
Yeah, it's been really bad.
It's been bad. Anything outside of like 3 feet from the basket, terrible.
Oh my god, yeah, that's really bad.
Meanwhile,
Milwaukee can't make 3 for a season.
And yet, could you imagine? Yeah, and they're still in second. Could you imagine?
No, the teams.
They're at the top because of defense. Offensively, they're one of the worst teams in the league.
I've been trying to say that, but
the
trying to say that for ages.
The reason why the biggest is a part of why I disagree with Chill is that when it comes to AD, I'm sorry, I'm not going to overreact to him dominating teams that don't have the size to compete with him. Because when he did match up with a team that had the size to compete with him in Cleveland, and he didn't attempt threes, then he couldn't even score 20 points, right? So like him going up against the Spurs and in the Pistons with no bigs, like I don't really care about that. It doesn't really bother me. Of course, at that point, yeah, dump it in, and you can make adjustments based off of the personnel that you're matching up with. But in a larger scale, the reason why bigs and players and just in general got to more three-point oriented play rather than post-ups, because the reality is that a huge part of it is because there just weren't that many talented bigs for a good portion of the last 15 years. There just weren't. There was a subsection where like an 8 to 12 year span where like the best bigs were like Dwight Howard, Blake Griffin, and I don't know, like LaMarcus Aldridge. Like,
well, the big man was getting phased out. Now,
I
won't fight that. There was a dying breed. Like Shaq was on his way out. No question about that. So, like I said, the game was moving further away from the basket. You can attest. I mean, you could thank the Euros for that. Dirk Nowitzki and guys like that. So the big guy was moving the game further away from the basket. However,
you think that was?
I just think they weren't talented enough.
I don't think there was a lack of talent. There was a lack of attention to the big man because people were moving, especially because of the 90s, because of Jordan.
Right.
People were like, hey, we can win. If you look at Jordan's centers, right? Bill Cartwright, Bill Wennington, Luke Longley.
Yeah, sure.
It was like, oh, guards are now the thing. Just like through the 60s and 70s, it was oh, you need a big man to post up. The 90s became you need a guard, a shooting guard. That's what you need, an athletic guard to win, because they don't even have any centers in Chicago. They just throw out 18 fouls. All of those things, I think, played into it. And there was just a lack of attention. There were still 7-foot athletic guys. They just didn't pay any attention to them anymore.
Fluent, to go back to your point about Embiid and how him shooting threes takes away from him getting to the free throw line. That's just not true. Like Joel Embiid, at the same time, he only shoots three or four threes a game. At the same time, he gets to the free throw line a lot. I mean, just the other day he faced him. Yeah, he faced the Minnesota. Hold on, wait.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair.
That's fair, but I mean, you're adding Joel Embiid already has he went face the Timberwolves where he shot 20 free throws in that game. At the same time, he was able to space the floor with four threes in that game. He made 2 of them. So I don't see how the logic of his threes is affecting him not getting at the free throw line. So you want him to get to the free throw line. How then what would you say?
I said that you're taking into account when we were talking about how many points you get. And I said, when you shoot threes, are you taking into account that threes only get fouled 1% of the time where twos are 15%? It was a separate piece from Embiid. And the bigger point was that Embiid sitting out there shooting threes takes away from other things like his rebounding, his ability to get
make plays,
and other people could shoot threes and make plays. Yeah.
How does that take away though?
Inside than outside. And if any of you disagree that Embiid should play as a 3-point shooter all the time versus inside, if you have to make your pick, especially when he's shooting, my point was 27%. Then
I think we all agree. If we had to do the extreme where he could only do one or the other, we'd say he should play inside.
He should be inside,
but he can do both. So why not do both?
But he's not right now. He can.
Right now,
sure.
Technically, yes. Right now, he can.
Right.
But in general, though, Embiid is such a rare breed of a player where he can shoot 3 to 4 threes a game, at least for the past 2 to 3 years, not this year, the last 2 to 3 years.
Right.
3 to 4 threes a game while converting them at like 35 to 37% of the time, while still also getting to the free throw line 10, 11 times a game and still being effective on his 2-pointers where he's converting them at like 53 to 54%. Like he actually has a healthy diet of those.
Let me ask you a question. You want Embiid? You don't want Embiid coming down and setting up on the 3-point line. You want him going down low. Now, if he's coming and he just pulls up, like there's a fast break and he's the trailer, sure, I want him to take that 3 because he can hit that 3 normally at 35%. But if I'm running an offense, I want him to start down low, and if the play, the matchups, whatever, have him come outside and now he's shooting 3, cool. But I want him inside more than I want him outside. Significantly.
How often does that happen, though? How often does it happen where they just structure an offense and he starts on the perimeter? A lot of times he starts and the lower high block.
And then I'm glad it's interesting you mentioned that too, Lo, that he starts in a lower high block where he finds himself getting pushed 16, 17 feet away from the basket. He doesn't start on the box. He finds himself getting pushed out. Now, he's the most effective when he gets the ball 7, 8 feet away from the basket and then goes to work. I don't want to completely exclude the long ball, but what has happened, I don't want to exclude the long ball, but what has happened is that you've made these guys think that that's where I have to play now. I got to play outside in, when in reality, no, you don't. The most effective that you've been is in the mid post, in the mid range. That's where you are the most effective. If you want to add that to your game, that doesn't have to be an integral part of your game as opposed to what the other stuff is. What the other stuff is what What the other stuff.
No, go. You got it.
What the other stuff is what makes you great. That's what makes Embiid great. That's what makes Giannis great. That's what makes the big guy great because he has an advantage. I'm better here than I am here. Now, the fact that you got guys like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and you got those guys pushing the game further away from the basket, now that makes you think that I got to play out there too. No, I'm going to still stick to what works. And this works. I understand the game. I understand the evolution of basketball, no doubt. But this still works. This isn't the same, Lo, as like the triangle offense being outdated. Yo, a big man playing in the mid post or on the box, that never goes outdated. That never goes away. That will always work. Now, if you want to add the long ball to it, okay, that's fine. You don't have to add it in volume. But as long as you stick to this right here, you're gonna be successful. And I think that the big guy has gotten away from that. That's why we've seen what we've seen from these guys.
You know, I look at guys like AD and Cat that want to play the 4. And they want to play the 4 because they want to play outside more because they don't want to bang down low. And the reality is both of those guys would have been better served playing more down low. That, again, don't take away from their versatility. Don't take away from them being a threat from 3 because that keeps the defense honest. Mm-hmm. But I think the fact that a guy like Cat probably pushed for that Gobert trade so he could go outside. Look, I won the 3-point contest. That doesn't win you playoff series. It just doesn't. And that's at the end of the day what matters. Like, I'm not talking about their stats, all that other stuff. In terms of basketball, those guys should be playing the 5 if they want to win.
Which, by the way, Mars, I want you to take a look at that Minnesota team, and forget what you see from Cat. And we already know what he's doing defensively, right? We already know what Rudy's. I just want you to watch the play of D'Angelo Russell. I don't want you to watch anybody else.
You got to beef with him.
I just want you to watch the play of him and him only.
I'm done with him. I'm done with the guards. There,
yeah, he's another one. Yeah,
Cat's playmaking way too much because D'Angelo Russell's incompetent at this point.
Yeah. So what you got to say?
No, I guess my final point is that if we're talking about like the hyper talented bigs who actually are good enough in the post, like Embiid, yes, like I think he should be. I don't think it's not really that crazy. I just don't think that a focal point of his offense is shooting threes or even on the perimeter. It is more low high post oriented. Like I just don't think that it is. I also agree that he could do better in positioning, but I also just think that guards in today's game are just horrible at entry passes. So I think a lot of it just culminates to a lot of things where
I want to. That's why they need. Because that makes me nuts, man. When I hear that right there, that makes me nuts to hear Lo say that, because even though it's true, like how can you not? And I'm sorry I'm getting animated, Lo.
No,
how can you not, as a wing player, how can you not be able to throw
up? I got
Embiid on the box, and he asking me for the ball. How can I not get him the basketball? I got Giannis on the box. He's asking me for the ball. I don't care who's in front of me. I'm getting him the basketball. Yeah, that's not difficult.
If you watch the 2020 series against the Celtics in the playoffs where Simmons got hurt and like there was no playmaker. Like every time down the court, they were just struggling to just find him when he was flashing in transition or just in a low block. It was like I don't even know how to begin to think about how I'm gonna throw this ball to your right hand. Like it was like, all right, come on, like what are we doing right now? But like, long story short, though, yes, like players like Embiid, I can understand that logic. But for like the other 90% of bigs, the reason why they don't post up or get in the paint is because they're just not good enough. It just they
don't know how.
I think what do they do?
And what do you do in practice? I see them practicing. I think
even through the transition, like for example, like Zach Randolph, for example. Zach Randolph, active post player, could get in the post, but he just wasn't good enough. Like he just not like the volume of what he was doing.
He wasn't good enough, Low. He was a 20 and 10 guy. His first name was 20. His last name was 10. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the efficiency behind it. The efficiency behind his 20 was not good enough to justify consistently throwing him balls all the time or feeding him in the post.
Right.
We could get 7 to 8 3-pointers up, and we can just get the same level of production that you're getting from 20 to 22 shot attempts.
Only except they weren't. Only except they weren't. They didn't have that. That's why they played the way that they. I know you're using that. I know you're using that. I know you're using that as an example. However, you have to play to your strength. Zach Randolph was a good enough post player. Same thing like Blake Griffin was a good enough post player.
Not a good enough post player.
Blake Griffin was a better transition player, but he was a really good post player. He was a good face up 8 to 10 foot guy. He was definitely that guy, no doubt about that. Same thing. Now, DeAndre Jordan was not a post player, no question about it. He was not. DeAndre Jordan was a pick and dive. He was a pick and lob guy. That's who he was, right? He was a pick and dive. He was a pick and lob guy.
That's not a guy that's going to post you up. That's not.
No, but Blake Griffin was a solid post player. Zach Randolph was a solid post player, right? These guys were good on the box. So the problem that we have is, I think the influx of the long ball pushed these guys away from the basket, and now they feeling like this is the future of basketball, and this is where I have to play. When in reality, the way guys like Olajuwon, the way guys like that played, that's never outdated for the big guy. That will never go away. You're
naming hyper talented players. Yes,
right.
Olajuwon, absolutely be on the block. Joel Embiid, Jokic, yes, on the block. Shaq, yes, on the block.
Right.
Those are hyper talented.
Oh, we were talking about Embiid.
I know, but I'm saying, but the step lower, like the Zach Randolph,
Embiid plays down low too, so that point doesn't make sense.
As time continues to progress, as time continues to progress, someone like Zach Randolph in a league where there's just more ample 3-point shooting and volume threes, his scoring, the level of production. Yes, in Memphis, it made sense because they didn't have that much 3-point shooting. But as time continues to progress, if you're not able to be converting your 2-pointers or converting your post-ups at like a 52 or higher clip, like the hyper successful players, the hyper talented players are, there's almost no point of you being on the floor.
It's the player choice break.